show mode. Was ready to go. I was like, all right, we got this. And then my dog started puking, and then he's clawing at the door. And I'm like, ah! So it was just this little quick cycle of poor dog. Good morning. But he seems okay now. I don't know. I don't know if he just, because he stayed in bed with me. I don't know if any of you guys have another dog, but sometimes when they're really thirsty, they drink too much water too fast. So I'm kind of hoping that's what it was. Crossing our fingers. But you guys, we have two amazing guests today. If you're just tuning in, my name is Silly Lily, and you're watching Lessons Learned. We meet here every Friday morning, 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I am actually excited. We've got a guest to come back from last week, Princess. And up first, we will have Papa Bear Sings. But before we put Papa Bear in the box, we're going to do my Q and Q. And the quote is, we learn from experience that men never learn anything from experience. What would you go back in time and warn your younger self about? So this is kind of very similar. Like I ask people a question all the time, like what would you tell your 18-year-old self, right? And I think that when I asked, I don't know if those of you guys don't know Booyah Boy, but he said something and it has stuck. And I used to think that I would tell myself, don't get married, don't date that person, don't get this job, don't do this and don't do that and blah, 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 right? But I really liked what Booyah Boy said, and it's kind of been what I've said since. And I would tell myself that no matter what I go through, it's temporary and it's going to be okay. Because all of us have survived 100% of our worst days. All of them. We've all survived the absolute worst day we've ever had, right? So I think that it's really important, and I asked this question in this comment because we are our own worst enemy. We're our worst critic. So I guess if anyone out here is a bully and you're lurking, or you're trying to poke fun at people, or you're trying to be mean, just know that says nothing about the person you're belittling, and it tells us everything about who you are. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that your life is miserable. I'm sorry that you feel as though you have to do and say awful things to other people to feel better about yourself. But I promise, if you focus on fixing you instead of belittling other people, your entire life is going to start to get better. I'm still working on it. I'm still worried about what some of y'all think about me, and I still get nervous and, but just y'all, it is so much easier to just be nice to people than it is to be mean, right? And I already know Mike's not mean because he said, gosh darn it. Witowski. Now, nobody that's like a bully is going to start a comment with, gosh darn it. That's like my grandma or something, and she might be just the sweetest little thing I've ever met in my life until she's starting to not be there because she's about to be 94, and she's kind of getting a little cranky and irritable. But like, hell, if I was about to be 94, I'd be slightly cranky and irritable too, right? All right, Papa Bear, let's get you in this box and let's get this show on the road. So if you guys are just tuning in, I'm Silly Lily, and you are watching Lessons Learned, and I'm really excited to get Papa Bear in the box because, as always, he has an amazing topic, and he's one of my favorite speakers because he just rolls with it, and his stories are great. So you're in for it, guys. Let's go, Papa Bear. Hit you with the fame, like, hi.
Hi, so this is how my morning's going. I'm sitting here going, why isn't she calling me up to the box? Why isn't she, boxing me up? Why haven't I requested the box yet?
Yeah. Because I'm late, I'm behind, and I talk too much.
No. Because I didn't request the box. I'm sitting here, and it's like, did I request the box? I don't think. Oh, what do you know? I didn't request the box yet. Let's get started on that.
No, I normally I'm about 5 minutes behind. So normally about 8 after is when I get the first guest, 8 to 10 after. But yeah, between the dog and my blabbermouth over here this morning.
Yeah, no, and I got to go back to who was it? Yeah, boy, who said we've survived everything we survived. It's going to be okay.
Oh, Vibe Your Tribe. So Ace says that too, but he stole it from me. If you don't rock your vibe, you can't find your tribe. You got to
nice.
have your own vibe to find your tribe.
Yeah, but the part about we survive everything, we everything's going to be okay. One of my favorite quotes is, "Everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end." Because when people have asked that question of me, like, what would you change? What would you change? The one thought I had today that was different, because every time I think about it, I go, well, I think about that first awful trauma I had, and I go, well, I would change that, except for that would change everything else in my life afterwards, and I might not have the kids that I have right now. So then I was thinking this morning, well, let's think of something post kids being born, because then I'd still have my kids. But life has actually been more good than bad since kids were born. So yeah, I like the way they look at that. Is if I could go back and tell myself one thing, it's going to be okay. That's nice.
I do. I really like it too, because like I've been through some things,
Yeah.
right? Like I've been through a lot of things, and if you know me, you know most of the things, but there's nobody that knows all the things, right? So I have to constantly tell myself that it doesn't matter. For once, there's someone else out there that's having a much worse day than I am. Okay, I was late for my show by a couple minutes. My dog threw up. It's coming out the other side, if you know what I mean. For those of you with weak stomachs, we'll leave it at that. So like, my dog wasn't feeling good, and I had an option. Like I almost went into panic mode. I can't do this show. I gotta kill it. And I'm like, dude, just breathe, clean it up, run him outside, and you get on after. So I was a few minutes late. But it all worked out. But I struggle with that initial, and I want to blow it all up instead of just going, it's gonna be okay. And I guess that's right still. But I managed to talk myself down rather quickly, and we got it done, and we're here, right?
There you go. And I got a couple extra minutes to make sure my dog was okay because of that. So it all works out. Okay, I got to ask though, because my brain says ask this. So were there little reddish brown flakes or flecks in the?
No, it was.
Okay.
That's why I think he just drank the water too fast, and I don't know that my daughter took him out.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask her and look her in the face, because she can't. I know when she's lying. I just have to look her in the face. So I'll ask her when she gets up.
Yeah.
She's
No, the
the
only reason
worst
I asked.
I've ever known in my life.
Yeah.
It sucks that she lies, but I'm blessed that I can tell.
There you go. See, they're seeing the good side.
I came home, Papa Bear, and I blamed her for stealing a pair of my shorts out of my room. And I was like, why are you wearing my shorts? And then I don't care that she says I'm not. And then I was like, I don't care. Just let me know, because I was pretty sure those ones were pretty well hidden. So I kind of initially thought, well, what are you looking for, right? So, but then I went into my room when I got home, and I ended up having to go, hey, kiddo. And she goes, what do you want? And she thought I was going to yell at her again. Not yell at her, but I was going to, prove her. But in her mind, she already knew she was right and I was wrong. So when I called her, and I had to call her back and go, kiddo, I was wrong. I'm sorry. She's like, I told you. God, I hate that. You guys. But something in her eyes, she didn't look like she was lying. So I had to be like, I had to go double check, because I can't be blaming people for things they didn't do, right?
No. Well, and the good news is you didn't fall into that trap. There's a parenting trap, which is if I admit I'm wrong, my kids will never believe me again. Mm-hmm. They'll always come back with, well, you were wrong before.
I didn't even look at it like that. I can't lie.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
I can lie about surprises, and I can lie about fun things to keep secrets, right? Like good secrets. But when it comes to like accusing you of something, or me doing something I know I shouldn't have done, it will literally destroy me. from the inside out until I admit it. So when I do
Yep.
bad things or wrong things, like I have to tell you, and I've never cheated or anything where I've had to do that, but like, I don't know, I forgot to do something or I lost something or, a lot of people try to hide and cover it up. I can't do that, Papa Bear. I suck at it.
Yeah. Well, no, that's cool. And like I said, though, there are parents out there who think that if they admit they were wrong, they've lost the moral high ground or they've lost that, infallibility, and now the kids will always be questioning them. And it's just the opposite. It's when we admit to our kids that we made a mistake, they kind of go, "Oh,
Hmm.
okay."
Well, and that's just it too. Is I'm hoping that me telling her I'm wrong will make her realize, oh, well, mom was wrong and it was okay, because it is okay to be wrong. It
It
is.
is.
But when you
Exactly.
know that
That's
you're wrong, you gotta at least say I'm sorry. And that's my thing, is don't lie,
yep.
and don't accuse people of things that they shouldn't be. And that's why I had to say I was sorry, because I was like, oh, damn the guilty conscience. I fell off. Hi, everybody coming in.
Yeah. No, I get that. And no, the reason I asked about the flex is because my first dog, when she was, I got her at a year, and like 2.5 years later, she's 3.5 now, and um, she spent the weekend at my ex because I was busy doing a show that weekend, and she threw up, and we weren't sure what was up, but they took a picture of it, and there's little reddish brown flecks that were in the results, which was the first sign that my dog had lymphoma.
Oh no.
And
Sorry,
so I just,
my screen went black for a second, so I panicked.
oh,
Oh,
it
sorry.
was it was in honor or memory of my dog who passed. So I'm kidding. Um, my dog's name was Ruth, and we had to put her to sleep shortly after she was diagnosed with lymphoma, and a couple days later we had to put her down because she was just went from asymptomatic, not showing any signs, to like having to pick her up and carry her outside to go to the bathroom within days.
That's my, yeah.
And my son has a wonderfully dark sense of humor. And after we euthanized the dog, he goes, and her name is Ruth. He goes, "Dad, so does that mean we Ruthanized her?" And I chuckled. I said, "Yes, and now
I
we're
don't mean to
ruthless."
chuckle either, but like that shows that he's
Yep.
able to,
Oh, he's
yeah.
able to process the dark stuff and make it funny. And after he said, "Did we Ruthanize her?" I said, "Yes, and now we are, of course, ruthless." That is a lot of how we roll over here is dark humor.
Everybody's got their ways to cope, and I think that in a lot of ways I'm like your son. I like to try to make it a little lighthearted, and like I'm sad, but like, okay, and before all of you guys are like, oh my God, you can't believe that. Listen, my dog wouldn't have wanted me to sit there and weep and moan. My dog, like that I lost, she was, tell Josh, making sure he can't hear. She was my favorite dog.
I love that you whispered because you didn't want your dog to hear that.
I'm telling you, he hears me, right? I love my dog with my whole heart, and he's the best thing in the whole world that ever happened to me.
And I love cleaning up after him.
Even when he pukes and poops in the house, it's the best. But anyways, and I kind of had to do the same thing, because she was the dog when I was sad. She came to cheer me up. She would put her face and she'd do this with her head and make me, under, and that was her way of saying it. Was almost like she was saying chin up, right? And I
Yep.
always tell her I don't want her right now, and she would constantly come back with her nose under my chin as if she was always saying chin up, chin up. And it always, and after, I kind of started to look at it, because at first it annoyed me. At first it annoyed me. And
Just
then,
stop that. Yeah.
right, I'm like, I'm being grumpy, stop, right? And she wouldn't. But it was almost like she'd come in, and her nose would go like this. This would be her nose, right? And her
Yep.
head and her ears. And she'd keep it right here, as if to say, keep it up. We're not doing this.
That's
I love
beautiful.
you right here, So
So my first dog, Ruth, I trained her to be my service dog because I deal with some PTSD from SA when I was 14. And what her task was to be a service dog. This is my little public service announcement. A service dog is different than an ESA or emotional support animal. A service dog is trained to do a task to assist someone with a disability, ESA, emotional support animal, is a pet that gives you support. You need to have a condition such as depression, et cetera, something that's going to need the emotional support. Service dogs can go places with you. Emotional support animals
Well, sir, like,
can't.
and I'm asking, service dogs, in my eyes, I guess, are the ones that smell or predict the seizures or your low blood sugar or
There's
something that can be immediately life threatening. And
Yep.
then the emotional support dog, yes, they are equally as important, but it's more of a security type thing, right? Is that
Yeah.
am I right?
And the big difference between them is service dogs, and you can't have a service cat, you can't have a service bird, you can't have a service, you can have a service dog or a service miniature horse. I don't know why the
Oh
miniature
my
horse.
God, I want a service miniature horse. No.
I just don't want to have to clean up after this. I mean, it's hard enough cleaning up after a dog. I don't even want to imagine the whole.
I don't even care.
I
And
understand.
horses poop don't stink like dogs.
There's that. My dog's
And
poop never stinks.
And it's great for your garden. Oh,
There
I
you
want
go.
a service pony.
So going back, the biggest difference between the two of them is service dogs have a task that they're trained to do that helps the person with the disability. That's an essential part. If it's not just, well, they cheer me up, they sit next to me, they let me pet them. Those are not tasks. Those are just aspects of having a pet. Ruth's task was when I would be dissociating with PTSD, when I would be going away in my head and I was like checking out, or if I had some emotional response that I wasn't aware of that was affecting me, she would come and sit down in front of me, looking at me, and just sit down and look straight up at me. And if I patted my legs, she'd jump up on my lap and she was, oh, puppy. It's like the human response. Dog comes up and we say, oh, puppy. There we go. Thank you, Sarah.
He's
The other
the
thing that's
highlight
weird.
of the show. I think y'all don't even come to see me. Y'all just
Nope.
want to see his cheesy grin.
Well, it's funny too, is how many times do you get complimented on your dog and then you're like, oh, thank you. And I'm like, why do we thank people when they compliment our dog? Because it's not okay. Thank you, because I had the good luck of finding an adorable dog. I don't know why I'm thanking you, but
Hey, all I'm saying is that they're telling my dog is me. My dog is cute. I'm cute because they say we pick replicas of us for our dogs or something, right?
oh God,
So
I hope not.
I am cute, little, and fluffy.
Okay, I'm trying to think of what that makes me, because Sammy, my current dog, is crazy, large, pouty, giant 3-year-old. Um, wow. Okay, well, I'm gonna go with a different
If
theory.
it makes you feel better, my dog's the biggest DICK that I've ever known. And I mean, I never used to like to think I was a jerk, but it turns out I kind of am sometimes.
Yeah, we all are kind of sometimes. Well, and Sammy's actually never been a DICK. She had her moments where it's just like, really, you're doing that right now? Okay, all right. But Ruth, Ruth's task was to identify when I was having a PTSD issue, and then if she did, she'd sit down and stare at me, and if I tapped my leg, she'd jump up, and she hated sitting in my lap any other time. So she'd come up and sit on my lap, and she'd put that weight on me. She's about 35 pounds, and she'd just let me hold her for about a minute. And that was my cue that there's something going on. I'd check in and be like, oh, that's what's going on. I'm upset about this. Or I was starting to check out, and she brought me back. Well, when we had to put her to sleep because of the lymphoma, I'm sitting there in the vet's office. We're in the little private room, and
Right.
she's laying on the floor on one of her blankets, and I'm petting her. And then she just kind of like laid still, and I got up and I sat on the bench again in there, and I'm bawling. And she gets up and she walks over towards me and sits down and looks up at me, which is her signal for me. And I'm clearly emotional. And so I tapped my leg twice, and this dog who I had to carry out to go to the bathroom jumps up on my lap and lets me hold her. And so her last task on this world was to do her service job task. And then after she did that, I laid her down and sat on the floor next to her, and then kept petting her. Then I got Sammy a few weeks later, and I thought I'll just train Sammy to be my replacement service dog. And I found out over time that Sammy is more in need of a service human than the ability to be a service dog. So Sammy and I we get along great, but Sammy's one to make sure I get out and I walk. I make sure that she feels safe because she had some abuse in her past at some point. Someone severely trained her to the point where, if you asked her to do something they had taught her never do, she'd be like, "What are you?" I wanted her because I like my dog to sleep with me because it's comforting, and I was trying to get her to come up on my bed, and I'm sitting on my bed. I'm like, "Come on, girl, come on up," and she looked at me like, "What?" No, and she'd like lay down on the floor. She'd leave the room. That one too, yeah, I can tell. And I would sit there and be like, come on, come on. And one day I was like, okay, I'm gonna get her. I'm gonna get her up on the bed today. I got bacon. Yep, just freshly cooked, cooled off bacon. And I'm like, come on, girl, come on up, come on up. And she's looking at me like, oh my God, that looks so good. And then she looked at the bed like, oh, but I can't go up there. Oh, that looks so good. But he told me to go up there, but I can't, but I can't. And she just spun around a couple times and then ran out of the room. Was like, couldn't handle it. And I was like,
it took me years to get him into my bed. I've had him for 10 years, and just in the last couple months has he stayed in bed with me all night, and I only think it's because he's too afraid to jump down by himself now.
well, and I was gonna say, Sammy doesn't always. Oops, just a second. Sorry about that. I just realized I forgot to turn the ringer off, and I didn't want to, in case I got a call, I didn't want to be like loud noise. Sammy will usually stay all night, but lately, every once in a while, she'll just be like, 3 or 4 in the morning. She'll just get up like, okay, I'm done with this, and then she'll go lay on the couch. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, I guess we're like an old married couple now, and she's at some point just like, you're snoring. I'm gonna go sleep on the couch.
Yeah, he prefers to. He's like a guard dog, and it annoyed me for years because he was so obnoxious and would bark at every
Mm.
he still does, right? But then the more I think about it, I'm like, I'm the first human in his life that gave him love and support and stayed. Everyone else beat him, abused him, caged him, starved. Like he had a really bad life before me. And so I feel like he thinks it's his job to protect me. Just like when I go to the restroom and he has to barge, I cannot shut my door. He has to come in. He's worse than my kids at 2 years old.
Well, think about it.
I think
We
it's because I take him and I watch him. And the dog
exactly.
is most vulnerable when they're using the restroom. So I think he thinks I'm protecting him when he pees, so he has to protect me when I go.
It's funny you use the word vulnerable because that's the word that I think of when I see Ruth. Ruth was weird when she'd go to the bathroom. Ruth was crazy. She'd go, and if she had to do number two, she would sit there and she'd do a little, and then she'd turn around and look at it, stay where she is. She'd do another one, turn around and look at that one, and do a third one, and she'd always leave like this perfect triangle of poop for me to pick up.
So he doesn't stop and smell it, but he spins and then he'll walk a circle around the area, and within a couple feet of the first one, he'll do the spinning and then drop a little more, and sometimes a third time.
Yeah, Ruth was every time 3 in a row. Sammy, on the other hand, and Ruth was always like chill about it. Sammy like gets this look in her like, oh my God, don't anybody look, don't look. I'm no, don't look. And my heart goes out to her. I'm like, okay, okay, sweetie, I'm not looking, I'm not looking. Okay, you're not done yet. Okay, I'm not looking. Really, I'm not looking. Oh, and yesterday, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. My day started off on a high note.
Okay.
I let her outside in the morning, and she goes out, and I'm getting ready because I started a new job this week, and I go to let her in, and I look at her, and she looks at me, and she's got something in her mouth, and I'm thinking, oh, we got a mole. She must have found a mole. Now I assume I have a big hole in my backyard somewhere,
Right.
and I look and I get closer, and it's a little baby bunny,
Aww.
and I'm like, and it's not quite dead, but it's mostly dead.
Right.
So like beyond taking anywhere to fix, and besides I have to go to work about a half hour, so that's not happening. So my
Right.
day started with euthanizing a rabbit yesterday. That was exciting.
Sometimes it's better than letting them suffer, as hard as it is,
Oh
though.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had to do that with 2 possums, 3 moles.
You realize we haven't even touched your topic yet?
Well, you know, and I was
We're
looking for
talking
how to,
about dogs and feelings and love, and I love this.
but it's all connected because I was looking at that going like, at some point I'll come up with the perfect segue sentence, because what I was want to talk about was that, you know, the balance between tried and true and something new, and that actually fits Ruth and Sammy, because Ruth had a very specific purpose. Sammy, I wanted, you know, I found, because I never had a dog. I had a dog when I was a little kid for about 6 months, and it bit my sister, and my parents were like, sorry, it's got to go. And I I've always wanted a dog, and it wasn't until after we got divorced, my ex and I, my son's mom, and all of a sudden we were living in apartments, and I realized I could look for an apartment that would let me have a dog. I could get a dog, huh? And so that's why we got Ruth. In fact, my son was beautiful. We'd leave the apartment, and there'd be a note saying, "Dog owners, please make sure you pick up after your pets." And one day he's in a grumpy mood, and he looks at the sign. He goes, "Dad, you know what? It's like the universe is mocking me with that sign." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, we've lived here a month, and we haven't looked for a dog yet." Because that was a big part of why we moved, was so we could look for a dog. And that day we looked our first day, and we took a couple times. But then that started that whole process. I finally have a dog. I'm a dog owner. And then after, you know, losing Ruth, it's like, yeah, I need to get another dog. I can't just, if I wait, it's not going to be good for me. So I started looking, and then I'm driving home, and normally it's a 20-minute drive from where I was going, and my GPS had to be like an hour because of traffic. I'm like, I'm not spending an extra 40 minutes in my car. I got to stop and do something. I don't know what. I got to go somewhere. And I saw the exit that I take for the Humane Society. It's like, I'll just go to the Humane Society. I'll look at puppies. So I take that exit. I go to the Humane Society,
Ustedes se
and I see
desayunaron,
Sammy, and
doña
I'm like, oh my
Angelicha.
God, she's so great. I can't have barking dogs. Dogs that
Ustedes
like
se
yelp all
desayunaron
the
ya.
time would drive me nuts. I mean, just autism, if you would just go through but Sammy was so
¿Y
cool. I took her for
Dorian?
the walk. I brought her back in, and all the other dogs going nuts and barking and barking. Sammy's just like, doom, ba-doom, 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 ba-doom. Not a sound out of her. So I'm like, this is my dog. And it just ended up being the perfect match. And that's where because I didn't want to waste my time, I found the perfect dog for me. And same with, you know, taking the job this week. I had, you know, been mostly semi-retired, doing some freelancing, but mostly retired. My house is paid for, mostly my car is paid for, you know, things are paid for. But, you know, the economy's been so horrific that I just find myself dipping into my savings more and more often. And I'm like, okay, I got to get a part-time job, but where, but what? And I was trying to think of someplace close, because I don't want to have to drive, you know, half an hour or 45 minutes to work for 4 hours, and then spend another hour and a half or a half hour coming back. And that's, you know, waste so much time. And I thought, there's a place near my house. It's a candy and soda shop that we only know because when my son was living with his mom sometimes, after the divorce, but before college, they found a farmer's market that sold this brand of soda. And we fell in love with it, and the cream soda was amazing. And we'd go and try to track it down, because they didn't have a central location. You had to find it. And that's now the place where I work, is a place that makes that soda. And it's been really kind of cool just getting back to, you know, seeing more people on a regular basis.
A routine.
Yeah, and well, not even routine so much, because it's a weird schedule, because it's kind of, I'm like new guy and filling guy, and
But it's still, it's something to do regularly that you have to attend. It might not always be the same time,
yep,
but it gives you it. I don't think I'll ever not be able to work, but that's these. I, I'm, you know, I
yep,
started my own plant business because I'm obsessed. So this way, when I retire, Everything I have now is setting me up for in 20 years, right? Because I don't have a retirement. According to people above, I'm not going to really have SSI, right? So I have to think, and I am obsessed. So although I live in a shoebox, it's also a jungle, and I would not have it any other way. Now I do have about 50 plants more than what I normally would have. I've got about 150 right now total, but about 50 of them are to sell, right? Like I gotta, I found good deals on them, or I got them from someone else. I'm rehabbing it so that I can later sell it. Um,
That's
but
amazing. I have about 150 plants. About 50 of them are for sale. Okay, my brain took a minute to digest that one. She has 100 plants in her house. I don't. Okay, and I would say, oh my God, that's crazy. Except for I was thinking about the other day when I thought about how many instruments I have. Between my son and I, we have about 25 plus stringed instruments, guitars, bass, ukulele, those type of stringed instruments. We got about 25 between the two of us. But when it comes to percussion and hand percussion and shakers and maracas and vibratones and flexitones and all that stuff, I've got well over 100. I mean, I've got like 25 of those wooden frogs that you just. So
well, that's me with Mickey Mouse. I have all things that I come across Mickey Mouse that are within my price range, right?
oh,
But
interesting.
I wanted to collect something that can provide an income. And propagating plants is something I thoroughly enjoy doing. So like I'll do this after 11 o'clock. I'm not going to get into it all now, but I've spent a lot of money, but that's my future investment. As long as I can keep these plants alive, I have income in the future, some near, some far.
That's what I had for a while. When my son, was living with me regularly before college, I had we had done a lot of Lego together, and I had just amassed quite a collection of Lego. And I had a concussion and was unable to work for about a year.
3 to 5 minutes.
That concussion, um, I wasn't able to work, but that Lego collection that I had paid my rent for months. Because I would just start selling off sets. I'd sell off bulk Lego. I'd sell off, interesting, weird parts that late people need because they're only using one or two sets, so they're pricier parts.
Hard to get, but yeah.
Yep. And so sometimes, and same with the musical equipment. I buy musical equipment with the intention that if I want to sell it, I'm going to be able to sell it for about what I paid for it, if not more. So between, a lot of my hobbies have really supplemented the income also.
Well, and plus, since they started having plants, I don't know if any of you have noticed the change in the last month, but when I get on in the morning, I can breathe. Before all these plants were in my house, I woke up every day super stuffy and
Oh,
super
wow.
miserable. Um, so I don't know if any of you who are here with me all the time noticed that. I got on this morning and I am not blown my nose once.
Huh. Interesting. And this, someone's dancing and celebrating the non-flowing nose, which is cool.
I haven't seen that one. I like her. No, but Papa Bear, unfortunately,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got
yeah. No, I get it.
um, go ahead, write it up, finish up whatever you want to add to it, and then give us a little bit about your stream and yourself and when we can find you.
Yeah, and so a big part of it is just, life is. I see life as a balance between there's that which works and that which we may not work, and we have to find our way. So it's kind of like static versus dynamic. There's the habits we have, and they serve us, and then at some point they don't. We find new habits to replace them, and that's our life as a continual process of unlearning what doesn't work and learning what does work. I'm going to sum it up. When I stream, I do music and we do chill chat. We'll talk about various stuff from mindless, doesn't matter to anybody stuff to really deep, intense stuff. I'm a radical forgiveness coach. And so we'll talk about forgiveness. We'll talk about SA. We'll talk about, and Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about, folks. Uh, there you go. And that pretty much sums up for him. Thank you. And I'm going to go and get my eyes tested this morning. Yay. Always
Okay,
fun.
go get your stuff done. I gotta get Princess in the box.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right, Papa
Cool.
Bear. I appreciate you. It was always a pleasure to have you back, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks.
Mwah.
Same here.
Bye.
Bye bye.
All right, Princess, are you ready, babe? You got 17. I'm cutting you out on 2 to 3 minutes. I'm sorry. It's me from being late today. I'm sorry. Oh, I just want to make sure she's ready. I know she was in here blinking. I just don't want to throw her off. No, it's not your fault, Papa Bear. I keep going too. Sometimes conversations just go like that, and you kind of just got to go with the flow. But I think that 15 minutes is still good. I give y'all usually about 15 to 18 minutes, you know? So, Princess, where are you, beautiful? I know you're flashing down there, so I know you're here. I just don't want to hit the screen and you're, I don't know, picking your nose or adjusting your bra. Oh, she just requested, so I know she's ready. Here we go. Look, it's always here. I'm gonna be waiting for the box, and I'm gonna be like this, or poking my eye, or adjusting. You know what I mean? So,
No, I said yes, no problem.
let me turn my phone so I can hear you. Okay. So how are you today? Did you get your flight? Did you have a good trip last week?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I turned the fan off so I can hear you. But yeah, so welcome back, Princess. Because I've cut you short and we're at just the minimal time, I'm going to let you go ahead and get started on your topic, and we'll go from there.
So I just wanted to talk about how I learned that family isn't always blood, and blood isn't always family.
And go into a little definition of that. Please stop.
So, like, obviously, you're born into a family, and that's like your blood, but that doesn't necessarily happen to be your family when you're an adult.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think it's important that people realize that, just because someone's family doesn't mean they always have the best interest. And just because someone isn't family doesn't mean that they're not 100% behind you to back you. But also, I've learned that sometimes I get in my way of seeing true facts, and sometimes I push people away or jump to conclusions about like my family. I fought with my family for years, and now we're finally mending our relationship. But that's because I let non-family get in my way. So I think that as an adult, knowing, I think that this kind of falls into lines of people who are toxic, right? Like as you grow up and as an adult, you learn, okay, I love this person. I will always love, let's say it's your cousin from your dad's side of the family, whatever, right? And then, you grow up with them, you love them, they're your family, but maybe they start making poor choices. And maybe at first you're not strong enough or smart enough, for the lack of like to say no or to walk away because you want to fit in, or you want to follow the cool crowd, or you don't want to get in trouble with whoever. But then as an adult, you got to go, you know what? That person is, I don't know, just to keep it simple, out at the bar every night and making poor choices. And that's toxic to me, because that's not the life that I want for myself. So it's not that, you can't be cordial, but you have to make choices to not have that person as a huge part of your life. Because for me, I have an addictive personality. So if I'm hanging out with somebody that goes to the bar every night, guess what? I'm going to end up at the bar every night. Right. Psychopath. I know. She's very soft spoken and I'm very loud. Sorry. But yeah. So I guess at what point in your life, did you realize you had to make these choices? And I guess how was it like emotionally at first versus once you realized it was better for you?
I feel like I made these choices very young because I was put in a position where I had to grow up really, really young and raise my own siblings. So I realized that my parents weren't like there for us like they should have been. and that was like really emotionally hard at first. But like now that like I look can now that I'm older and can look back on it, I know that like my parents tried the hardest they could with the older siblings, but because of their age, they just got like tired, and they shouldn't have had as many kids as like adopted as many kids as they did
Yeah.
because they still have a 13-year-old and
So your folks are much older.
yeah.
So I think, and a lot of it falls into, again, so just for some of you younger folks who may have been raised by the older folks, like I was raised by some of them boomers and stuff, and the way that people are raised now and the support that kids have now is absolutely insane compared to growing up in the 80s. Go outside. I don't care if you're hungry, there's a host. Dinner will be, at 6, whatever. Home by lights down. Otherwise, bye. And back then that was normal. Back then you fended for yourself, you made your own meals. And nowadays, and I see it with my daughter, like my daughter is 13, right? And when I was 13, I was making dinners, I was washing dishes, I was doing my own laundry. My room better be clean or else it wasn't going to be allowed to go anywhere. And
Yeah.
I had all these things that I had to do because I was raised to take care of myself. Now I've fallen victim in that I work so much that I feel guilty. So I do all these things for my daughter, and she's nowhere near independent. So a lot of it is the era and the type of parenting style. I don't know your parents. I don't know your whole story, but I just want to point out that certain people raise kids certain ways, and I don't know if yours is a neglect situation or if it's just your parents were old and tired. But I know I was raised where my grandma did spoil me though. My grandma was my spoiler. She spoiled me to where I was a brat. But um
My aunt was my spoiler.
yeah, and it's nice to have that person, isn't it? When you're
Yeah.
kind of stuck and you feel alone, and you've got your person. And I don't, and Princess, not everybody has a person like that. So I'm grateful that I have my grandma, and I'm really grateful that you have your aunt because it does really help on some hard days, right? Like it really does.
Yeah.
It really, really
Yes.
does.
I no longer have my aunt, but having her did help.
Oh, yeah, my grandma's about to be 94, and that day terrifies me because she's been my rock
Mm,
for my whole life. I'm
yeah.
43, and that's a long. I'm about to be 43. It's a long time to have your grandmother around, right? Like most grandparents don't see 80s, let alone 90s. Your grandma dog, yeah. See, and people who adopt, it's a usually in most situations it's a blessing, and I wish that I could do it. I just know that I couldn't afford another kid because I can barely take care of me and the one. Otherwise I probably
Yeah.
would look out and reach, but I couldn't afford to feed another kid, like I could. Oh, my shopping bill for two is crazy.
I wanna
Okay,
adopt.
you want to adopt?
Uh, yeah. I was adopted from a family that like I see my siblings, and I'm glad that like I got out of the family that I was born into
Okay.
because like it's just a bad situation.
Yeah. And that,
And
and and I don't know your age, but you look like you're still fairly young. And for you
I'm
to
14.
realize this, um, and for you to be able to, so anybody out there that's got a rougher home life or grew up and had it rough, or maybe you are adopted and you've not been able to accept it. This is one of those situations. My ex came from a really, really bad situation, and he made his current situation equally as bad because in his mind, and I look back now, I didn't realize this then, is he just assumed that everybody was going to be the same. he couldn't accept that this was much better for the long run, and that, you know what I mean? Like, this family wanted to be there. They weren't on substances. There was no physical abuse or other types of abuses. So for you to be able to see that is huge. And I want to point that out, and I want to say that out loud, that, you know, we could be in worse situations. Things could be worse. Um, and it kind of, like I said, when we first started, we have all survived 100% of our worst days. Every single one of us. We've survived 100% of our worst days. And we woke up and we're here. And if you've got a phone, I'm going to guess that you've got more than enough money to eat, because otherwise you shouldn't have a phone. You should be feeding yourself. So the fact that we have just that little bit is more than a lot of people, you know?
Yeah.
But it's crazy. Life is short, and you're young and you're looking at things positively, and I like that for you. So keep that positive mindset, and know that, you know, and you being young, remember, if I can give you any advice as an old cranky bat over here, it's going to be okay. You'll be okay. Just, you know, you can have your moments, you know, you can freak out, but fix that crown, remember where you came from, and keep going, right? Fix it. But all right, so it's 10:55, Princess. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to this, or what would you tell, here, let me ask this. What would you tell your maybe 15, 13-year-old self? Like, what would you tell your younger self about your future? What advice would you give yourself? Oh, stop it.
That's hard. There's a lot that I would, yeah, because there's a lot. I would tell her not to like seek for the attention from her parents. To like be like, okay, getting that from herself, and to like find hobbies she likes to do. Because I was just like, I didn't do anything, and I was just attention seeking when I was younger for my parents, and so all I would do was everything that they asked me to do, and then more, and then like on top of that, doing like just so much extra stuff that just to please them, and then didn't end up pleasing them.
See, so now you're thrown in there. Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. God, you're going places, Princess. You got this. You're young. You've got this, Mamacita. Real quick, tell us when you stream. What are your streams like? Are you on any other events or shows on here?
I'm doing a battle ending October in August. I am going to be on Kitty Commander's Pet Show eventually. I normally I stream from like 12 to 2 and then 12 a.m. to and then 12 to 2 p.m.
Okay.
So like 4 hours a day. Um, and you can typically find me either just like chatting with my viewers or doing random verses or cuddling with my guinea pigs. I love cuddling with my guinea pigs.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Prince. Well, thank you for coming back. I'm glad everything worked out last week. You guys, if you haven't done so already, hit Princess with the favorite.
What is that?
What? Screenshot somebody. Oh my God. You got a screen poop? I don't want a screen poop. I want a screenshot. Oh, my Lanza. All right, Princess. I hope you have the best day. You guys go check her out, 12 to 2 a.m. and 12 to 2 p.m. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on. You gotta. Ah! Yay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, princess. Have the best day. All right, you guys. We're gonna get Jay in the box. He's gonna do the little outro here in just a minute. Jay, do you have an outro today, love? I should have asked first. Sorry. You guys, if you're new here, I don't think I said this once in the last hour. I'm probably going to get in trouble for that if there's anybody watching. But if you're just tuning in, I am Silly Lily and you are watching Lessons Learned. No, I did say it once, maybe twice. I don't, whatever. But you are watching Lessons Learned. My name is Silly Lily. We meet here every Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And every Friday, we've got 2 guests and we talk about life, things that happen to us, experiences. It could be anything from learning how to set boundaries. Today we kind of, Papa Bear and I talked about our dogs for a half hour and the support and all the good things that having a pet can do, you know, your emotional support versus the service dog. And then Princess got in the box and talked about how family's not always blood, right? And just because you're blood doesn't always mean that you act like family, you know? And she's so young. She is so young. So for her to be able to grab onto that and to know what's good and what's not good and to not be people pleasing. And that's, that was kind of like, I heard she did what, and I say that because she said she did everything everyone else wanted. And that's people pleasing. I did the same thing. I didn't want anybody mad at me. I didn't want anybody upset. So I did what I was supposed to do because that makes them happy. But that didn't allow me to do things, or I didn't allow me, I'm sorry. I have to say this right. I didn't allow me to do things that really made me happy. I was unable to find my vibe, so I couldn't be led to my tribe. But now I'm old and I no longer care and I do what I want. And if you don't like it, there's the door. Don't let it hit you where the good Lord splits you. Okay? 11 o'clock. Fuck. I can cuss. Woo!